So many people make the mistake of cutting their hair too soon. So many people start with their locks being in a high top fade already. A lot of people ask the question, should I start my locks with a high top fade or should I start with a full set and then get a high top fade? And yes, today I am Gun Lightyear. So many people make this same mistake, so don't let this be you. Gun Lightyear today. I'm wearing the ski mask because I need a retwist. I'm getting a retwist next week, so that's coming up very soon. But we got a video from the fourth kin, and I'm showing you guys this video because this guy has like developing freeform locks, and these are actually gonna look really good when they're all said and done. But there's one thing that I want to tell you guys when you're getting locks, what you need to do before and what you need to avoid doing later down the road. But what he's doing right here, he's separating that hair and then he's gonna start creating a taper. He's doing a tapered hairline right here as well, and a taper on the sides, and he's doing a taper on the back. It should look really clean at the end. I've not seen this video before, so I'm excited to see what it looks like. So let's go through this tutorial. You got these developing freeforms, and he starts by sectioning out the hair. You see he's going to be creating that taper on the side, both sides, and he's gonna do the taper on the back. He's just separating that hair that they want to keep and taking all that hair that's going to be cut off, which looks like a lot, and actually it's really not. I had to do the same thing even after I had started my locks. And one thing I do want to tell you guys is that you don't want to run into the issue of not wanting it in the future. I've seen so many people get tapered hairlines and then eventually want to grow them out because either the barber or themselves have pushed it back way too far. So I would suggest holding off doing a tapered hairline until the locks have been created. And keep in mind that when you are creating the locks, you always want to leave a little bit of baby hairs down by the hairline anyway, so that you're not pulling your hairline and receding it. But what he's doing here is he's cutting off all that hair that's going to be cut into the taper. I feel like this is very high, but maybe it's just me. I don't feel comfortable cutting off that much hair, which eventually I would actually like to do a taper on the back, because I do have a tapered hairline. I have a taper on the sides, but I don't have one on the back. And trust me, that's the part that's really bugging me right now, is all that frizzy hair, especially down here on the neck. It's hard to lock up hair. Although it locks up quicker, it just seems like those baby hairs on the back just never want to get into the lock. So doing a taper on the back of your head is actually extremely ideal. But doing the taper fade itself isn't the problem. The problem is when you decide to do the taper fade. Some people get locks and then do a taper fade after they get the locks. Some people get a taper fade and then get locks. Which one should you do? Because when you get locks and then you do the taper fade, you're gonna have to eventually cut off some locks. And what could possibly happen is those locks that you cut off can make some locks skinny that are on your head, which actually happened to me. So once I cut the locks and created the taper, I had to combine some of the locks that are closer on top of the head to locks that are right next to them. Now the downside of cutting the hair before you get the locks is that you might want to grow that hair back in because you don't want a tapered hairline anymore. You might not want to taper anymore. You might just want the hair to look more natural. And growing that tapered hairline or the taper back in, or even if you get a high top fade, growing it back in, you're going to go through a really awkward stage. But as long as your hair is long enough to hang over that awkward stage, you're going to be completely fine if you're okay with covering it up. But one thing to also note right here, if you see his taper, that section that he created out, it wasn't a perfect section. Like there's not a perfectly defined line in between the taper fade and the long hair. Now for locks, you want a perfectly defined line. And that is of course if you're going for a more maintained look. And overall, the fourth kin is an amazing barber. I've been watching him ever since he started his channel. But keep in mind, if you go to a barber or a salon, whoever is cutting your hair, make sure if you are getting locks, tell them that you plan on getting locks and you want that line to be straight if you want it to look more maintained, or if you want it to be more organic, you can do it that way as well. Also keep in mind, if you're getting a taper fade, it is a possibility that you can continue to keep nicking those locks that are next to that taper fade. Like this looks really clean, but the issue is if you go to a barber that isn't very skilled, especially cutting hair that is locked up, they will cut some of them locks. And it's happened to me, it's happened to some of my friends, and it's happened to some of you guys as well. It's pretty annoying going to the barber shop and then they eventually just cut off locks, and it always happens in those tapered hairline areas or even the taper fade area. And if you have a high top fade, it's almost inevitable that a barber that is unskilled is going to cut off some of your locks. But this is a most important step right here, is that tapered hairline and doing it properly. Let's see how big he makes his tapered hairline.
With the grain, but it was just snagging, so I just clip over combed it. That's the thing, cutting hair is like trial and error. You may try some, you're just like, nah. So he warned me that he had light spots. It wasn't really going to be an issue. I didn't get worried when I seen this. I kind of...
Light spots are inevitable, especially if you're going from long hair to short hair. It just always happens. If you have long hair, I don't know what it is, it just creates lighter spots. And then once you get into that, cutting it all down, it just looks lighter in some areas. It's just how it is. And obviously over time, if having it short, it thickens up, and that's just really how it goes. But I feel like that tapered hairline length is perfect. You don't want it too long, because if you get it too long and then it just keeps getting pushed back, and then eventually it doesn't look good. Now with this guy in particular, like his hair is kind of freeforming. It's starting to freeform. I'm not sure if that's what he's going for, but that's definitely what it looks like. So with him going for more of an organic line in between the taper and the long hair is gonna look fine. And now he's putting in enhancements. Enhancements look really good. The only thing I don't like about him is if you go to a barber, you get enhancements and then you go wash it out and you're like, man, the barber didn't even do that great of a job. I think enhancements are great if it's touching up a already well done lineup, just like we've seen right here, versus when they do a terrible job on the lineup and they cover up bad spots with enhancements. Now guys, this is the final look after everything, and it's all covered up. This is one thing that people face no matter what with dreads, like, or long hair in general. Once you get a fade, like, bro, you can't even tell. But that process went very smooth. It looks very clean. It makes the hair look more lifted and it looks more shaped. That's the benefit of getting a fade. But like I said, the most important part is knowing when to do it and when not to do it. So many people make the mistake of cutting their hair too soon. So many people start with their locks being in a high top fade already. A lot of people ask the question, should I start my locks with the high top fade or should I start with a full set and then get a high top fade? I recommend all of you guys out there, if you haven't started your locks yet, start with a full set and then go into doing fades. At minimum, just do a little taper fade at the beginning so that you can have a nice lineup. But I wouldn't suggest doing a high top fade just because I've seen so many people, including myself, after they've had a high top fade for 2 to 3 years, they want a full head of locks. High top dreadlocks were extremely popular about 4 or 5 years ago, and now full head of dreads are starting to become more and more popular. So my recommendation to you guys, if you're doing a tapered hairline or just like a burst taper fade, I would actually suggest for you to do the fade first and then get the locks afterward. Because if you get the locks and then do a taper fade, you could end up cutting off some of the locks and some of the locks can get skinny. And trust me, you don't want to run into that issue of having to do more work after you've already locked up your hair. But hopefully this video helped you out in making your decision on what you want to do with your locks. If it did, don't forget to subscribe and go check out the fourth kin if you would like to. He was actually who I learned from how to line myself up. And if you think we should have ski masks on Greatlocs.com, let me know down below. I don't know, I'm really starting to like the ski mask. Even though a lot of people say I make ski masks look friendly, I'm here to change the definition of the ski mask. But I'll see you guys next time. Peace.